We'll now be calling this meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals to order. Let's take a look at the first set of minutes from May 5th. I think the one's got red lines, versions from, I assume you changes.
Yeah, I just actually noticed something, one more thing on public hearing 126 Taylor Road. It says President Edward Cinder. Missing an N there for Snyder, or the N's reversed.
Yeah.
Can you get it to pages 1 or 2? And then on page 3. This is beyond picky, but little page, paragraph is also, can you read it more? There's a space. On page 4.
No, accept the minutes of May 25th as amended.
One correction on page 3. It says about that I interpreted accessible parking to be minor. I don't think, because the parking I felt like was major for egress.
No, that one was minor. That was the one about the handicap spot.
Oh, right.
As opposed to the pathway.
Okay, because that would be required already.
Yeah.
You might want to add the word handicap, accessible, so that it's clear that you're referring to handicap parking.
Yeah, I think I'm just immediately like, no, but accessible parking is always important.
Yeah, but handicap.
Or handicap.
Accessible for handicap.
Maybe
Some people don't like handicaps. So.
maybe we could say in a lot of places, what, ADA-accessible parking space.
And the ADA works.
Yeah, that's handicap.
Maybe,
But I think it's clear because it's followed by an accessible parking is a legal requirement.
Yeah,
Where parking doesn't.
yeah, no, I know.
Is.
I know.
I'm comfortable with it as it is.
Okay, that's fine. We have a motion pending, the second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion, or any further discussion on Minutes as revised. Hearing none, all in favor of accepting the minutes as amended? And the minutes are accepted. There were, I just note that there were two pieces of correspondence, one from, one to Jen Wheeler, concerning matters of Still Acres on the 9th and 12th. But unless anyone has anything to discuss, there's no action for us to take at this time.
Good.
Otherwise, next administrative item on the agenda is the annual board reorganization. We need to, our respective terms as chair and clerk expire 28 days. So we need to vote on vote on chair and a clerk for the term from July 1, 2025 through June 30, 2026. Any discussion, nominations?
I nominate David. Being chair. Do a fantastic job. You're always well prepared.
When I show my roll in 7.
Well, that's
6:59.
you're studying it at that point.
Yeah, I am. I mean, I'm happy to keep going. If someone's dying to be chair, I'm happy to step aside, but I'm happy to just keep driving the boat.
No one's got that down.
Apparently, the only way you can leave chair is to physically leave the town of Stowe. So, anyways, all right. Well, we have.
So I'll second the nomination.
Any discussion? Any other nominations? All right. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
You may vote, David.
I'll stay. All right. Thank you. As for the clerk position, open up for discussion. Any nominations? Don't all raise your hands at once. You can nominate yourself if you'd like.
I don't mind doing it. I'm happy to be the clerk.
Okay. We have a nomination.
I second.
We have a second. Any other nominations or any discussion? Would you like to give a speech? I'm joking.
I would.
I have a few remarks prepared. And a PowerPoint presentation.
You were already expecting this.
That's exactly. With that, all in favor of the nomination?
Aye.
Aye. And we're all set there. All right. As we have no public hearings tonight, we can simply move on to our discussions. And we'll just, frankly, I think the easiest is to just go in order as they are listed in the agenda. So there was obviously there was, of the two requested modifications at 56 Harbor Road, one was deemed a minor modification, that being the ADA accessible parking request. There was discussion last week, and so I just want to open up again for any further discussion. If there's, and just as a brief reminder, now that we have determined that it's a minor modification, we can go towards the substance of the request, including any sort of specific conditions if people want to have on it. I know there's some noted already in the minutes. I think with respect to like signage and making sure that it's properly designated. So anyway, I'll open the floor for sort of brief discussion.
It should be done within the guidelines of the ADA, the signs that they use. In terms of the number of spaces, I think, are we talking total number of spaces of 26 spaces? Is that the total number that we approve on?
No. He's asking about like
The total.
because it's usually like a ratio.
Right.
26.
Yeah.
26, yeah. So I think, I'm just guessing here with 26 spaces, it would be either 2 or 3 handicap spaces, I think.
Is the ratio 1 to 25?
Is it one?
Roughly 1 to 20.
And being a dance, I would expect 1 is more than sufficient.
Right. So, yeah, and I'm not even quite sure, is that rule or regulation, or is it just guidance?
It's ADA,
It is ADA,
Yeah.
okay.
so,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think the safe, unless people have an objection, I think, and I welcome the thoughts, like, I think the safest course is just to simply say, like, rather than trying to like have it emulate what the law or the regulation is, we just simply say, essentially follow the law or
Yeah,
follow whatever
comply
regulation
with the
is.
regulation. yeah.
Exactly. Also because if they change, we'd want that to change, you know, if the sign suddenly has to be
Right.
2 feet by 4 feet, you know, then you just kind of evolve with it, so.
In saying applicable building codes, that does include the ADA regulations.
It does.
Yeah.
We gotta specify it though, because he doesn't understand. The applicant is not clear what he's required to do.
I don't know. It's our responsibility to educate him with the law.
Well, I think we gotta be civilian decision. We need.
So you're talking about bullet point number 2 here? Ken?
Yeah. The building codes.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd even put an ADA.
All building codes, the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Yeah.
Yeah, and any other applicable state laws and regulations. Does the town have anything?
I don't believe
I
so.
don't think we do.
I think there is a state guideline,
Yeah,
so I can reference that
Okay.
as well.
Yeah.
And then just all other applicable.
yeah, I think we can say like including but not limited to, and that way we just provide a survey. Okay. Any other details, comments, issues, concerns, items to note with respect to this particular request?
Oh, that's pretty straightforward.
Well, based on his comments at the end of the hearing,
What you said
It-
before.
versus, and what's being said here in point 4, is there a conflict? I mean, basically, he's talking about going back to just private lessons.
And just to say, because it was done after the hearing, after the meeting closed.
Yeah.
Was it?
He did, it was.
Oh, I thought you said it
No.
before we closed it. I'm sorry.
No. Technically, the meeting was closed,
Okay.
and then the applicant
Yeah.
approached, just to be clear, the applicant approached the board and stated that he
What
was,
his idea was.
right, he acknowledged that
Okay.
we were not allowed to take in any new information.
Take back, yeah.
No, but
Sorry.
but he did state, just
Yeah.
so it's all clear, he did state that he was no longer pursuing, I think for lack of a better term, a commercial operation, and would be returning back to the current use of,
Right.
sort of an in-home
Yeah.
dance studio, dance operation.
Right.
So, and just for the record, no members of the board responded or commented on that. It was just
Yeah.
some sort of pronouncement that he made.
My apologies, I misremembered what he
No,
said.
that's okay. No. It's a fair point, yeah.
And it's the building inspector's problem to interpret and answer
Right.
any problems that come up with the
Yeah.
auditors.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? I hadn't referred yet to the draft notice of decision, modification, special permit modification number 1, but, to the extent that anyone has any edits to that as well, I'd welcome that.
And move we grant the special permit for 56 Harvard Road, special permit modification number 1.
Second.
Am I voting on this one? Because I think I was involved on this one.
No, Maria was.
Maria?
Yeah, that's okay. All right, we have a motion with a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of accepting the special modification as written?
It might be. Are you sure?
I'm not sure.
It doesn't matter because this is a separate thing, so it doesn't matter who was on the original, it's.
Oh, okay.
I apologize. Okay,
Oh, okay.
all right, thank you. All right, just be clear, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. And that passes 5-0. All right, I'm gonna change what I said before, which is to now go slightly out of order, based on the various things that we can discuss. Jumping down to the discussion of the site visit policy, did you want to just briefly just sort of introduce the issue of the topic?
Yeah, So other boards and commissions and STO have informal site visit policy where they'll send 2 members out to do a site visit prior to the public hearing. And then those 2 members will come to the public hearing and report on what they saw. This kind of keeps it a little bit easier on staff, keeps it easier on the applicant so that there's less scheduling and less meetings, since we can't have a big site visit with all members participating because of open meeting law. So, and then if there's a really big project, like a new subdivision or a comprehensive permit or something of large size, all the members of the board would go. So I was wondering if that would be something the board is interested in, just to make things a little bit clearer, and so we can have a policy on our website so that we're clearer with applicants.
So do they apply that to each and every application?
Yes.
So we can still decide that we all want to go or not.
If it's, basically it would be like a rotating list, so 2 people get notified for this application, and the next application be next 2, and then just keeps on going through.
So if somebody keeps a roster and they keep track of
Yeah,
it.
so I'll keep track.
Michael would keep it.
Yeah.
And in the policy, we can set forward kind of what would be a 2-person special or site visit versus a whole board site visit. And then just put in a note saying the board reserves the right for all members to go if deemed necessary,
Or no members to go,
or no members to
right?
go.
Because probably in this particular case, issues that you really don't need a site visit per se. And one of the things I was thinking about is how do you actually, if we don't do them all, or if there's some filter that we would say, if it's one, okay, go. If it's not, then, don't pass go, don't collect $200. So I have a non-conforming lot, but it really is conforming if I wanted to do something that wasn't gonna go stretch all the margins, right? So would that be something that we would really just put on the table and say, do we need to go or not? You know what I'm saying?
That it could be something that the board says, no, we don't need it. I don't have anything prepared for it. I just wanted to see if this was something.
Yeah.
To bring.
Yeah, I'm just trying to tease out,
One thing is, and I'm sorry if I'm misremembering, is the planning board has this policy, right?
The Conservation Commission.
Conservation Commission. They do site visits for every application.
Yes,
Right.
they're required to by law
Yeah.
to have at least 2.
Yeah, that was my only hesitation, is that like, we sort of pick and choose when we do site visits, you know?
Right.
And so, I didn't know whether or not.
We could do the fact that, we do have this 2-person policy, and the board, before someone goes out, the board makes a decision. It says, does this need one or doesn't it?
Yeah.
And then the list, then we go back, who's ever next on the list would be the ones.
but this is preemptive. This is something that you want to do prior to the actual hearing, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that
So
possibly.
as the applicant is filing, they have an expectation that this is one of the steps that may or may not occur as a part of the process.
Right.
Yeah, I kind of like going before the actual hearing starts because.
Well, I do, but I don't, because when you have the hearing and then you have some actual details about really what's going on, as opposed to, oh gee, I don't remember seeing that, or I didn't ask that, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm a MBWA, you know?
Yeah, but it's like the pool a few weeks
Yeah,
ago.
right.
A few pictures would have said the same thing. Because it's obvious that behind them is nothing.
Well, the topology was kind of challenging
Yeah.
once you got there, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah. But
So,
you,
I don't know, my personal preference is to actually get some data and then go do this on-site. And I think just because of the nature of what we're trying to adjudicate, it's a little different than the planning board or the conservation committee for that matter. That's my point.
I'll go along with it.
Well, on your end, is that more work or less in terms of coordinating?
Generally, if I'm trying to coordinate everyone to go, it can be a lot of back and forth. Because sometimes a lot of times the applicants will say, oh, I'm available every day. And then I give them dates and times so I can know I can't do that. And
Yeah,
then it's, these people can only do certain times. So having something before the public hearing, not necessarily a site visit before, but having some expectation that they have to come with
But,
dates.
but that act doesn't change regardless of whether you do it before or after, right? You're still gonna have that process about, getting schedules to get lined up.
The other thing, I like it from the point of moving things along for the applicant. I feel like it almost feels like it would end up like maybe more work on our end if we're going out more often. But I like kind of thinking, oh, it would, hopefully move stuff along, but then I wonder if more data was coming up and then all of a sudden we were needing to all go back or anything like that, if that would actually be more frustrating because they had already done a site visit with just the two.
For what it's worth, in the way I guess maybe I'm being selfish. I guess there are times, not that I don't trust the other members of the board, but there are times where it's kind of like, I want to see it myself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Like, for example, like at 56 Harvard Road, not to go into the details, but it like, I don't know, there was a different feel to like walk down from the corral down to the bar and get that. I feel like also some of the times where we've gone to like Lake Boone, like understanding like how close is close. You know what I mean?
Correct.
And so you get a better feel for it. I do think we've also done a pretty good job about it being sort of strategic. I mean, I can remember a number of applications where sometimes someone's like, oh, I do a site visit. Others have been like, oh, okay, I don't need to go, and then it ends up just sort of by natural selection being, one or two folks. But I'm sort of agnostic either way.
Yeah, I like that thought. I think that's, the hands-on piece is different dimension.
You learn a lot just going to see you see what they're actually up against. And see what the neighbors see.
Well, that's it. Yeah. Sometimes it's like the angles, like, oh, if I'm standing here now, now I see it versus like the aerial shot, or something like that. So, all right. Well, if I'm reading the room, maybe we'll just sort of table this for the moment and people can revisit it. Maybe it's also the fact that we've gone through a stretch of not having had any site visits. You know what I mean?
If it ain't broken, don't fix it.
Yeah. But I mean, one thing too is that if we don't go ahead with this, I think as long as people sort of maintain a certain measure of flexibility, so, Michael's not having to deal with like 73 emails going back and forth. I mean, for example, the last site visit, I can't remember where we're going, like my schedule blew up and I ended up saying, you know what, forget it. I won't go and I'll just trust the rest of the board. So I think as long as we're flexible, that also will ease the burden on both Michael and on the applicant.
Yeah.
Can we put a piece of tape across the mouth? Can we all go at the same time?
One would
I
wish.
think council would approve of that.
Yeah. So, okay. All right. Moving on to, I think the other item, Michael, you put on the meeting packet deadline policy.
Yes, so I took the planning board's meeting material policy and just reworded it a little bit to fit this board.
That should all be in the materials.
And the intent of this one is to make sure that people submit things to the board on time and that the board will have enough time ahead of the meeting to read through the materials and there's no surprises when they get to the meeting itself.
I agree with 100%.
Well, we've had a number of those occasions, right? And some of the bigger projects that actually shows up, during the meeting and whatever. How do you actually adjudicate that? You stop the meeting or you just don't call the meeting or?
So the way that for the select board, for their packet deadline, if you submit something late, it's not in their packet, it's not discussed.
Right.
For the planning board, it's held on to, and then if the public hearing ends, they'll give it right before the end of the public hearing. For the Conservation Commission, they'll just continue without it.
For us, as a give it late, we just extend the meeting to the next
Well, I mean, it's to the applicant's advantage to have the material available during the hearing, or prior to the hearing, I should say.
Yeah, is that essentially what it is? That like if an applicant on the day of the hearing is like, oh, shoot, I forgot to give this to you. We basically tell them, here's your choice. Either we can go forward, but we're not looking at what you just gave us, or we'll take it into consideration, but we're gonna get a continuance. That's sort of the.
Yeah, I would even be a little bit more emphatic about it. If we only get it that day, there will be a second continuation.
Yeah. I mean, nothing stops the person from saying, I'm not gonna give this to you in paper, but I'm just gonna talk to you.
Right. Well, Mark did that a number of times.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, yeah. I
That's
mean,
right,
so, yeah,
that's
I mean, that was reality. That was a big project. Okay,
Yeah.
we were able to figure out how to make that work.
Yeah.
But it's just, if we're going to insist that everybody's got everything ready prior to the meeting and then it doesn't happen, then that's the part that we really need to have the right policy about. If this doesn't happen, here's what your obligation is, Mr. Applicant and Miss Applicant.
It also covers correspondence from the public. So it gives the board enough time as well to read that, so.
And would the public know that kind of deadline?
It's gonna be a policy.
It would be a policy to be
Yeah.
uploaded on the website.
Okay,
It'll be made easy for the public to know what's going on in the public hearing process. So I'll have it all linked.
Remind me, when do you post the agenda?
The Thursdays before.
Oh, okay. All right. Because I was wondering, I was like, could you put something in the agenda, but it's on, you would essentially issue the agenda as a way of closing the meeting materials. That's right. I mean, for what it's worth, I do agree that it is frustrating to show up and have a pile of paper being told, oh, we just got these in. And like, we're trying to respond to it on the fly.
Yeah, I thought the school did that to us a few times too. It makes it difficult to follow things. The library, deck visual.
Oh, that one. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm like, the high school? What are you
Yeah,
talking about?
yeah,
Okay,
master.
yeah.
Yeah, master.
Oh, yeah.
Because they get things in the last minute and there's too much there. Too much detail that you have to look at.
I mean, it's a picky point. I wouldn't mind. I mean, we could come up with 1 o'clock, but I'm just curious on Thursday, just because it gives me enough time before the end of the day to distribute it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I can have everything prepared.
Gotcha. Okay. And you said this is modeled off of the select boards?
The planning boards,
Planning boards.
the draft I provided.
I just didn't, I assume it was vetted, and by the way, I have no justification for asking this, but like, there's no sort of open meeting legal prohibition to actually having a deadline to submit. Okay. I guess the idea is because you can always show up in person and provide the information anyway, so you're not foreclosed.
Yeah,
Okay.
most towns have them.
Okay.
So.
I just want to make sure.
So the other thing they may want to put in here, we say it could be a continuation. I would definitely say it will be a continuation, but I would also say somehow caution or advise the applicant that there are situations where we could decide the night of the hearing.
Should be our option.
Right.
Yeah.
And that would be, I would think, some motivation for you to get all your information in prior to the meeting. So it just kind of takes that out of the equation. If you don't have anything in, the decision can't be made. And you absolutely need to have a continuation and some subsequent hearing to make that occur or allow that to occur.
Is it something that the notices that go to butters? Would this be, is this something that could be included in that? Or is that is that a statutory form that can't otherwise be amended?
That one we have some flexibility with.
Okay.
I'm just gonna pull up
I actually just got one from the Conservation Commission. I should have read it more carefully.
So I usually put a link to say applications and related documents for public hearings can be found at,
Okay,
and then I give them a link. And then somewhere on that page, I can say like questions about the public hearing process, learn more here, read board policies.
yeah, I'm just saying, I'm just thinking of like, I don't want this to be a situation where you're like, well, I didn't know, and we could, you know, I mean, I realize it's gonna be on the website,
Yeah.
but people don't go, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
And so, like,
Checks in the mail.
yeah, it might be nice to put something in the abutters notice of all the people, like, to being like, you know, any correspondence is due by, you know, by Thursday at 1 o'clock before the hearing. Just put it there, you know? That way it's kind of pounds it into them. I think that would be worth it. But otherwise, I mean, I don't know, does that, based on how the policy is drafted, does anybody have any comments, concerns, edits?
A motion to adopt it?
That's what the word.
I move that we adopt the zoning board of appeals meeting material policy as presented.
Second that.
We have a motion, we have a second, any discussion? Actually, I'll just ask a very picky point. Should it be material or materials policy?
Materials, plural.
Or am I being overly vague?
Does it,
I just,
Does that make any difference?
okay, never mind. All right, we have a motion, we have a second.
Damn lawyers.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, the zoning board of appeals meeting material policy is adopted.
So it actually, the term meeting material or meeting materials includes. So there's a declaration in there of what that means.
It's already covered.
There you go. See some of that. All right, we have two final items on our items to discuss. The discussion on the policy for special permits and variances. This has been previously discussed and edited, times. And so it is now up for any sort of final discussion and vote. And just to be clear, the official title is the Zoning Board of Appeals Policy on Special Permits and Variances for 1 and 2 family dwellings. So I'll just open the floor for any sort of additional thoughts, comments, concerns, edits.
Dimensional requirements, height. At the very end, it says or stories. Is that part of our official definition? Because it's never specified the number of stories in a structure. It's 35 feet, period.
I can take a look. We do not have a definition of height.
Okay, and this or stories should come out because it's not
Right, we don't know what,
determined
right.
by bylaws.
One thing I just, on the non-conforming lots that may require a special permit, the new non-conformities, I thought it might be useful to have examples of what a new non-conformity. Sorry, it's been a long day. New non-conformities would be, you know, as you had examples on the first bullet point, I think the second examples under there would be helpful.
I'm sorry, you were saying, speaking of one, guys, examples under the new nonconformity?
Yeah.
You're saying?
Yeah.
You want to propose an example?
I'm sorry?
You want to propose an example?
No. My brain isn't working today, so I'm not going to. So, I mean, you know, yeah.
I mean, I'm glad.
So based on the example above, it could be a pre-existing non-conforming single or two-family dwelling is within the current setbacks
Yeah.
on a non-conforming lot, but they want to extend into the setback.
Yep.
Is that,
Yeah, that's exactly the way I would put it.
Okay, and you just said what I was going to pick up. We call it one or two, but then we refer to single or two families. So
Oh, that's a
we
good
should
point.
be clear about whether it's single or one. I don't care which one, but just pick one. Be consistent about it.
I think we should do single.
You gotta look and see what the law, what the national law says about
Yeah,
use the same terms. I
Yeah.
think it might just be what it is.
Yeah. Whatever it is, call it macaroni, just make it the correct one, so.
40, section 6,
I'm just checking it out.
paragraph 4, or something like that.
Now, there are 32 references to single family in our zoning rules.
Just do a find.
And there are 5 references to one family. So.
There's the
Apparently, both
the majority rule.
What'd you say?
More of these than less of those. Yeah, I don't know, whatever we write should be just consistent, whatever the words are in the document that we're having in front of us here.
I think maybe single is probably the more predominant. Maybe.
Section 6 says single or two-family residential structure.
Okay, so why don't we change the title to single? Well, and the purpose. We'll change all the references to one to single.
Because I say the real estate world says single.
Really? Yeah.
It's got single, multi, you have two family also,
Yeah.
but single, multi. And then two family if you're specifying.
Did I get section 6 right?
It was section 6,
Good to search for that.
and that's paragraph 1 for
4?
1 4, yeah.
I said, hey, I thought I remembered.
And I did check in our zoning bylaws, there nowhere do we ever use the term story or stories.
Right. Didn't sure if I told you that. I've been through it 3 times.
Just testing your brain, just testing your brain.
On page 1, non-conforming lot, should the word use be capitalized? So a lot that does not have a use allowed. I know what it means, I'm just questioning, is that a proper noun or not?
It's a noun in the case of the bylaws.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, but the word use is not capitalized in the bylaws. Unless it's part of a title, like golf course uses, ski uses, but it's just a use.
And what does national law refer to when it says that ZBAs can't grant a use variance unless the bylaw permits it?
I don't think it's capitalized. National laws don't tend to capitalize things in the middle.
Use is lowercase.
Any other comments, questions? Oh, this is just a typo. The non-conforming lot under the letters special permit applications within the example, where it says single or two family dwellings, you have a space between the 2 dash and family. There should be a space.
For non-conforming lots that may require variance. Oh, never mind. Right.
So this might just be an overkill, but in the policy on page 2, second paragraph, it talks about lots that were conforming and not, they're non-conforming. Ernie has a digest of all the events of sequences of when those changes were made. Would that help? Here's somebody who knows when they bought their property or when their property got converted. Would that be useful information?
I can add a reference to Appendix 5A, I believe it is, in our rules and regs, which outlines when all of that changed. Yeah, 5A.
Yeah, 5A.
Okay.
I mean, one thing, this policy at least has the most clarity of anything I've seen since I've been on the planning board and the zoning board, because for many years, there's nothing but confusion of what is really required. And the lawyers are confused too. I remember.
Did we come up with another word for the word uses?
That's how it's called out.
Yeah, that's how they use
That
it.
is legally how it's called out in the Mass General Law and our bylaws.
In there, it's not implying kind of using the single or two-family structure differently. It's meaning the different type of property, is that right?
Where are you? What are you reading?
So the, uses beyond single or two-family structures.
So on the document, where are you? Where are you?
So page 2, and then under non-conforming lots that may require a variance. That first line, uses beyond single or two-family structures, such as multifamily structures or non-residential
Like
structures.
businesses.
Right, I guess I'm wondering if uses is meant to be, properties or site.
It's how you use, how you use the structure, or the plot.
Okay, it is.
If you
That's
have
what I
a
was confused.
store and a residential lot, which occurs, and
Okay.
that's a non-conforming use.
Okay, so it is about changing use versus, okay.
You can always change use and make it more conforming, but you can't make it less conforming.
I will say, despite the fact that it's more clear, I was curious, so I ran you can run it and figure out what the reading level is. It's still like a 12.
Oh, should we put this through AI?
No.
Come up with something like Kennedy's document, huh? I think it's a good start. Hopefully don't have to change it, but it clarifies a lot of things.
So I think the beauty of it is that, if we go along with it, do realize, you know what, there's a question we didn't answer, whatever, now we'll just make a tweak to it, you know?
So, do we need to get counsel to review this?
This isn't as binding as a bylaw or anything like that. So it's more guidance than like, we have to do X, Y, Z.
So, and I'm not challenging anything per se, but the guidance, who's the authority that's providing the guidance? Us?
Yes.
Yes.
We may get a field later.
Well, I'm just trying to make sure,
Start
you know, that
somewhere.
there's nothing with contrasting this against that someone's gonna say, well, you told me this and that's not the case, and get into that spiral conversation. I don't wanna do that. Okay,
I move we adopt the Board of Appeals policy on special permits and variances for
As
1 and
amended.
2 family dwellings.
as edited.
As edited.
Second.
Your motion with second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Alright. And with that, the final item on the list for this evening is a review of special permits granted in 2022. We have our ongoing review of past special permits. Taking our road backwards. I believe all of these special permits are now closed, with building permits having been issued, except for Hale Road.
Yes. 51 Hill Road did not act on the special permit,
And so that actually expired.
so it has since expired.
We don't want
I don't know why, but
it. I'm just curious.
no garage was built.
Okay.
So,
Probably money.
so,
That telephone pole's still in the way.
I'm sure it is. It was
Yeah.
like a $5,000 bill to move it.
Was this all of them valid for 2022?
yes.
Okay.
I don't think we need to go back any further, do we?
I'm assuming that there's probably none that are open.
I don't think there's anything that's still open. 2021 was a big year. I think there was about 20 or so. That might include a few variances, but we can do that. I don't think any of them, I don't recognize any of them, so.
That's before your time.
Well, let me just first ask, any questions, comments, issues, matters that you want to discuss with respect to any of this list from 2022? I don't remember the program, so I don't know what the site is actually.
Which one?
On South Acton Road. The swimming pool.
Oh,
We put it
Yeah,
in the front yard.
Yeah, hi.
Yeah,
it's there.
Yeah, oh, I know it is,
Yeah.
I know. I think there was a concern that like if there was
Gonna
a
flood.
leak, he was gonna flood.
Yeah, it was gonna wash out
the
the neighborhood,
Go wash out West Acton Road.
No, South Acton Road, not West Acton.
You said that. I'll find the motion.
And break a record here?
All right, any other comments? Are we sort of satisfied?
Yeah.
Does anyone feel that there's a deep desire to keep going backwards? I mean, I think we had talked about sort of getting to the point where, if the permits were closed and the sorry, if the special permits were closed and the building permit had been issued, or I guess what certificate of occupancy had been issued, there was probably no need to go back any further.
Most of them are homes, or they did something and that's done and over with. If it was some special operation, like a kennel or something like that, you might want to take a look at them.
Kennel's a four-letter word here. So, okay. So we're good about letting Michael off the hook from going back to 1973.
Yeah, it's. What's the possible vote here?
If the board wanted to vote to have something reviewed by the building inspector,
Okay.
Yeah.
just send a memo or something.
No, I think we're okay.
I think we're good.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for also humoring me with actually like going through some of these. I mean, theoretically, what we can do, you know, kind of future years is like come, you know, January, February, like 2026, we can say, all right, let's take a look at the 2025 and see where we're at. And how we can sort of just kind of do that as a regular basis going forward. Okay. Looking ahead, we do have a special permit public hearing scheduled at the next meeting on July 7th for 63 Cunningham Road. Give a quick preview of what that is.
Yes, so that is the demolition of a single family home and the replacement with another single family home.
The home's over the line.
The house, yes, is currently over the line and they're bringing it back in. So that's what's proposed.
Okay. So, but that's it for the.
It's one on the lake, right on the water there.
So, but that's it for that night, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Anything else to discuss of the zoning or planning nature? I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion, we adjourn the meeting at 19:52.
Second?
Motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
All right.
Meeting adjourned.
Yeah.
Nah, it was an easy one.
Did we satisfy?